Okay, so here is the situation. Something great happens to you, and the next day you go to work or school, and obviously you want to share it with everybody, even when you are not that close to them.
Yes, because if something exciting happens, you want to share it with the whole world. It's human nature, isn't it?
Yes, of course it is. But what if we turn the situation around and something bad happens to you instead of something good? Suddenly, the situation looks a bit different, doesn't it? So, why is that? Is it because we don't really know how to react to emotions that are considered bad?
It's true that there are definitely emotions that people think are negative, but do we judge them too quickly, or should we just pretend these emotions don't exist and ignore them?
So, if there is someone listening right now ignoring their feelings, or maybe pretending that they never felt jealous or never experienced self pity or the need for attention and validation, I see you, and hopefully, this episode will make you feel a bit better about it.
This isn't a podcast with all the answers.
It's a conversation about figuring things out as you go.
From two very different generations.
With Michelle R. Williams
and Nick Hirst.
Welcome to Life Happens. So, tell me, what's been happening in your life lately?
Okay, I joined a gym. There, I told you that I would. It was part of my New Year's resolutions that finally, I would get back to the gym. And we spoke about this in our New Year's resolution episode a few weeks ago. And I did it. And I started.
A few weeks ago. It's kind of funny because it's literally the beginning of February. And when this episode comes out, it will be even later in February. But, New Year's resolutions are for the whole year, I guess. So, no, I'm sorry. Who am I to judge you? Because I literally just send an email to figure it out, my French lessons. And I'll be starting in middle of February, which was also my New Year's resolution. So, yeah, I shouldn't be the one judging you.
Excellent. So, gym and French lessons.
Perfect. I think we are doing good.
I think so. I've already been 3 times, and tomorrow will be my 4th. So it's already having an effect. Well, I like to think it is. It's not visible yet, but I'm enjoying it. It's good.
It would just make me tired. Good for you if you enjoy it. I could never.
And you? How's your week been?
Good. Funnily enough, I had 2 or will have 2 photography exhibitions attending this week. One I did attend 2 days ago, and I'm going to another one this afternoon because I come from a photographer's family. So it's a huge part of my life and a huge part of my childhood. And the one I went to 2 days ago, it was my grandfather exhibition that he made for his birthday. And it was just absolutely perfect. It's been 2 days and I'm still so happy about it. And, I was a huge part of it because I'm very close to my grandpa. So it meant so much to me. And it was just great. And I was talking to so many people that, well, most of them I didn't really know, but it was still fun. I was acting so extroverted. I have no idea how I've done it because I'm the most introverted person ever. But when I have to, I can be quite extroverted. So I think I'm still tired from that. Talking to hundreds of people is quite tiring thing. So 2 days later, I'm still exhausted. And yeah, now I have to talk again. And I was before we started, and you noticed that my voice wasn't at its best. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's getting better now. No, it's getting better now. It'll be, it will go through editing and it will be fine. I'm telling you, if my voice just gives up in the middle of this, you will have to talk for the rest of the episode, which I'm sure you don't mind.
I could probably manage, I suppose. We should just say, before we move on, that these photography exhibitions, you are one of your grandfather's principal models. So your model photos were plastered all over the exhibition.
Yes. I'm his model literally since the day I was born. So 21 years. And, for the fact that I'm taking photographs or I'm letting someone take photographs of me for 21 years, I still look good. Like, not every model can say that. The fact that I'm also 21 years old, that's,
kind of helps.
let's skip that fact. That's, we don't talk about that. Yeah, so they were off me. And actually, this whole, experience, not the exhibition, but being a model and like growing up in that environment and so on, it's something that I would love to talk about here one day, because I feel like it's very romanticized and it's, like all fun and games and all pretty clothes and makeup and photos on social media. It's not really that. So it's something I would love to talk about one day, but not today, because what we are talking about today. Tell me.
So today, emotions. We're talking about emotions and emotions that we feel guilty for having. Is that right?
That's right. And it's so funny. And I just realized that now when you said that, and you are like the most emotionless person I know, and you never feel guilty. Like, you don't know what guilt is. And you are always telling me when I'm telling you I feel guilty for something, something stupid, like, oh my gosh, am I bothering you too much? Or like, am I making my own therapist out of you, and so on and so on. I always feel guilty about it. You're like, no, guilt's stupid. Don't feel that. And so I think this is the perfect topic to discuss with you, because I feel like all of these things are so foreign to you. So that's going to be fun.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I'm just saying that to you because I'm quite happy for you to share your feelings with me and be honest. And I think that anybody should be able to do that with their friends and people that they're close to. Maybe it's harder when you have people that are maybe not close, but people that you are in constant contact with, like the people that you work with or people that you go to school with, colleagues, people who are not actually friends, but people that you spend significant amount of time with. And it might not be comfortable for either you to share an emotion with them because you're feeling something very strongly, or for them to hear it. Like, especially if you have something bad emotion. I mean, I know English people, for example, and I'm being horribly generalistic there to speak about an entire race, but generally I think it's true to say the English people are a little bit uncomfortable with emotions. We're a bit uncomfortable showing them, and also we're a bit uncomfortable being on the receiving end. If you're I know from my perspective that if I was in a room and somebody that I didn't know very well, a colleague or something, suddenly burst into tears, I would just be thinking, oh, what do I do now? I really don't know. But if it's you, because I know you, then I would care and I would want to get to the bottom
Well,
of it.
I hope so. I mean,
to be sort of your therapist. And we did used to say that, and going back in the days, when we would meet to have these kind of one-on-one private lessons, English lessons, and then you would say, "You're being my therapist," and I was happy to fulfill that role. But
well, and then
disclaimer,
it turned
I'm not
around
really a
and
therapist.
no, but I will be, and I'm certainly yours. And the tables turned, and now I'm diagnosing you with everything, and I'm analyzing everything you say. Oh, you aren't supposed to know that. I'm sorry.
Well, you do a lot. You tell me a lot that he's analyzing. Say, this is wrong with you, and this is wrong with you.
I love telling you what's wrong with you. It just keeps your ego in check, and I feel like you need it sometimes. So you're welcome.
Ego? What?
So anyway, back to the topic, because you basically started it, and there was this situation that made me think about this topic. Because if you think about it, the relationship you have with your colleagues or your classmates is just so weird, because you spend like at least 8 hours a day with these people, like 40 hours a week, which is so much, with people you usually don't really care about. It's like, okay, obviously you can find friends, and at school you have friends usually, and it's a bit different. But there are still so many people that you spend so much time with without caring about them, and that sort of makes you not be around people you actually want to be around. So the relationship is like super weird if you actually think about it. And because people are social creatures, and we want to, or we tend to share things with people, and we want them to hear us out, and so on and so on. But if you don't spend that much time with people who you trust, you sort of end up in the situation having your colleagues and having to decide what you tell them from your private life and what you don't tell them. So if you think about it, and I sort of was thinking back to my school days and back to my first job, which was absolutely terrible, but I think it's also a good example in this case. And I think that we can all imagine a situation when something great happens to us. I wanted to say if we win a lottery. I don't think that something happens on a daily basis, but we can all imagine a situation, something happens that makes us so happy. And the next day we go to school or we go to work. Naturally, we want to share it. I mean, look at me. I just shared me being so happy about this photography exhibition. It happened 2 days ago. And I mean, obviously I shared it with you, but I just shared it, on podcast with like random people. Why? Because it makes me so happy because I do want to talk about it. And that's natural. And usually when that happens, when you share these things with your colleagues, you get a happy reaction back. I mean, obviously, if you have that one colleague that absolutely hates you, that's different. But in general, you will just have people being happy for you and asking questions and celebrating with you if it's, like you get engaged or married or your kid is born or your grandchild is born or something like that. People tend to be happy about it and celebrate with you. And that's just normal. We don't think about it at all. And we care about someone else's big feelings in that moment. But if you turn it around and instead of that good big feeling, you insert something bad and you imagine the scenario all over again, something terrible happens to you. And the next day you go to work or school, you still feel sad and upset about it. And you also want to vent. You also want people to hear you out or just get it out of your chest and so on and so on. But you don't usually get these reactions. You don't usually get your colleague, if it's not your friend, sitting down with you and being like, okay, tell me, let me share my opinion on it and so on and so on. And I just think that it's weird, isn't it? Because both of these things are personal. If you're happy, if you're not happy, it's personal. And why do we feel comfortable sharing good personal stuff with people, but not bad? You know what I mean? And I think in general, because, again, it's, as you already mentioned, it's a cultural thing. I think it's also a generational thing because I feel like my generation is getting better with sitting with, the emotions that are considered bad. But in general, we just don't feel comfortable sharing someone else's bad feelings, which again is something before I even started talking. You said that yourself. You were like, oh, I wouldn't know what to do if someone started crying next to me. But if someone came into the office and was like, oh my gosh, I proposed to my girlfriend and she said yes, you would be like, yeah, congrats, man. You would participate. If someone would start crying, you would go take a break, have a cigarette or a coffee and just slowly disappear, which is natural. I went through so many situations when I've done the same. I was like, ooh, uncomfortable situation, I'm out. So I get that. And I think that the truth of it is that we don't know how to work with bad emotions in ourselves and therefore in someone else. And also having to share someone's bad emotions just makes us do something about it. It requires emotional labor on our side. And that's something we don't want to do. While with the happy things, you just smile and wave.
Yeah. It's an easy fix for happy. But what you're saying is that we don't just feel emotions, we judge ourselves for actually having them in the first place.
We do. Why is that? I mean, do you do that? Because I feel like, I do it, obviously, because I'm a bit of a self-critical person. So anytime I feel, jealous or guilty or sad or angry, I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, you can't be feeling like that. Jeez, get it together, which is terrible. Saying it to myself, I'm like, I'm not even gently parenting myself. What the hell? But I am that type of person. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose, imagine that everybody does. But obviously, I'm not everybody. I'm just me. But I can think of situations where I've thought to myself, I shouldn't be feeling this. it's wrong. I should not feel this, or I don't want to feel this. So, of course, what you end up doing is controlling your feelings. And earlier you used the delightful expression, get it out of my chest. The actual English idiom is get it off my chest, but I kind of like get it out of my chest is brilliant.
Why off? It's not sitting on your chest. It's inside your chest.
We'll
I keep
come
telling
back
you,
to
English
that.
language makes no sense. Like, I'm just,
Not
the
disputing
more I
that.
know.
It's true. Our English idioms are crazy, but
I have my own and I will be happily using them. Thank you very much.
I think it's the thing is that we have got better, and this is a generational thing. So this kind of reflects better on your generation than mine. Is that we have got better at getting things out of our chests. I love that expression.
I love how you find it funny. I'm
just
literally
going
like
to- well,
ruining
because
your language and you just find it funny.
I've spent years and years and years getting things off my chest. Now I'm going to, for the rest of my life, I'm going to be getting things out of my chest.
And maybe that's the issue.
Could get very
Maybe
messy.
that's why you have so many unresolved issues, because you are getting rid of only of these who are on your chest and not in your chest.
Okay. But the fact is that people are getting better at getting things off their chest. Obviously, the circumstances have to be appropriate, but it clearly is better to be able to express your feelings and come to terms with them. I'm always reminded of out of only 2 times I've ever actually been in hospital. Both of them were as a child and both were entirely routine. First one, I would think I was 5 and had my tonsils removed, which was, in those days, it was just, they removed everybody's tonsils for some reason. And the second one, I was 16 and I had had my appendix out, and it was then I was in hospital having my appendix out. And a nurse said to me at one point, better out than in. And that was the whole attitude in hospital, that anything that you could get out of your body, it was probably better to get out. So let's not go into messy details about that. But the same thing seems to be true mentally now. I think something that we accept, that, it's better if you can express emotions. But as I said, it's something I've always been quite bad at, or that I deliberately control. I've actually got a very personal example, personal to us two, in that there was a time, one of our lessons, actually going to be our last lesson, so a few years ago now, when we were meeting one-on-one in a cafe.
I will pretend like I remember.
You will remember this when I get to it. And then we went through the whole thing and discussed this, that, and the other, and just generally, practicing talking English and all that. And then right at the end, I said to you, oh, by the way, I have to tell you, I'm moving to Belgium. And to
this day, I hate you for that moment. That was oh my gosh.
You said to me something like, and you tell me now?
Literally.
Why didn't you lead with that? I said, I thought quite legitimately, well, it's your lesson. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. So,
you, the person who loves talking about yourself, first of all. Second of all, what kind of thought process is that? When you have some huge news, you just start with it. But that's your style. And to be fair, you are doing that like ever since. You've done it a couple of times after that. So at this point, I'm kind of used to it. But you always just drop the bomb out of nowhere with the most like calm expression, like if you were talking about weather or something. And so that was literally like, oh yeah, I'm moving away for the rest of my life. I will never see you again. Bye. And I was like, yeah, thanks for telling me, man. I mean, okay, cool. Bye, I guess. So yeah, that's very you.
But it comes from growing up in this society in England where, and growing up decades ago, showing your emotions was considered a sign of weakness, and you didn't discuss personal things. That's the whole point.
Yeah, but it's
and
so
that's
sad.
kind of where it comes from. Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like if you think about who benefits from that, because it's certainly not us. Because if you don't talk about these things, if you don't get your emotions out in a proper way, it will end up being so much worse. It's like when you are sick and instead of, treating a common cold when it starts, you'll just, work normal and everything, and eventually it will get worse. It's, like simple thinking. But I feel like it's just what sort of like society pressures us to do, because who benefits from that? Workplaces. Most workplaces, those offices, wants you to be a robot. Sit down, do your work, go to hell. That's how it is. You are not going there to discuss your emotions, which on one hand might seem logical. On the other hand, I just find it very sad, because that's like, what, 70% of your life. And it just, it just makes us so non-human. And I just think that's terrible. Also, another thing, it's just, I feel like those systems benefit from it, like families. How many times you've heard something like, yeah, don't talk about it to keep the peace in the family? Like, your grandmother said something very insulting to you, and you feel sad and upset and insecure. Yeah, don't talk about it. You know how she is. Just don't talk about it to keep the peace. I mean, I've been hearing it quite a lot. And that's also just so unhealthy. And I mean, yes, if you don't bring the uncomfortable things out, the family works. At Christmas dinner, we can all make small talk and pretend we are fine, and it won't end up being a disaster. But personally, you keep pushing it down within yourself, and that's definitely not healthy. Same, like with like different sort of areas, gender roles. Again, like you are a man, I don't know, can't cry. I'm sorry, but that's like the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. Like, I'm sorry. Or, like just things like that. Or obviously, nowadays with social media, like don't share the bad things. You tend to share just the good things, and so on and so on. So if you don't share the bad things, so many systems thrives on it. But do you? I don't fucking think so.
No, possibly not. I'm just looking at or thinking about where all this came from, and this kind of negativity towards emotions. I would just say, as a sort of caveat to your Christmas dinner example, about somebody says something that you completely disagree with. My caveat would be, always try to think before you speak, because once you've said something, it can never be unsaid, and that can affect relationships for the rest of your life, really. But going back to
I can't really do that.
No.
I'm speaking first, and then I'm the type of person who says something somewhere, and then like 2 days later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I said that. That was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
I'm that type of person, unfortunately. So, yeah.
I tend to be the person who tries to think before I speak. And
that's why you make pauses when you speak.
It is. If you're in a position, actually, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but if you're in a position where you speak publicly, for instance, like politicians, you get training.
Yeah.
And you are taught to create this thinking time, especially, with politicians, they have to do lots and lots of interviews. And I used to do this. I used to help people because I worked for the BBC, and I interviewed lots and lots of people. I mean, mainly the people that I was interviewing would be rock stars and stuff. So not in the sort of controversial situations that politicians might be speaking about. But, and obviously with rock stars, actually, you probably want them to be more controversial. But with politicians, they want to convey a certain message and a certain level of intelligence and calm. So you kind of train them to give themselves this thinking time, so that when they start answering a question, the first few words are totally meaningless, like something like, oh, I think that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked me that. What they're doing is that's just automatic. You don't need to involve the brain while you're saying that. Your brain is racing, thinking, okay, what am I going to say to answer this question? But that's a slightly different issue. It's not really talking about emotions. Thinking about some of the ways that we've come to perceive some emotions as being negative and not speak them out loud is because of going back to childhood. You're told, don't cry, be grateful. Others have it worse. I used to get a lot of the time as a child, and I think I'm not alone in this, and I think it's cross-cultural. If I was eating something and I didn't like it, so I wanted to leave it, I couldn't eat it, the emotion there that was forced on you was guilt. And it was always, it was, there are starving people in Africa who would love to have what you're eating now. To which my answer was always, pack it up, send it to them right now. I don't want it. But I mean, I'm making light of quite a serious situation.
I grew up with the same.
So that's how we grow up, thinking that certain emotions are bad. But even now, we still think, things like jealousy. Is jealousy a bad thing? We perceive it as being totally negative.
You would say so. I mean, I feel like people tend to divide these things in such a simple way. It's like good, bad, the end, no gray area. But because I'm who I am and I love to think about things from the very other point of view, from the very other side, I love to find good things on the bad emotions and bad things on the good emotions, or, emotions, feelings, personality traits, reactions, so on and so on, all of these things that we do. And I think it's interesting because, sort of going back to the last episode when we were talking about coping mechanisms, why do we have them? To deal with emotions or things that we were sad or we decided are bad. And so instead of thinking about, why do I feel angry? Why do I feel jealous right now? We do anything else to pretend it's not happening. And we talked about this in the last episode. And so I kind of wanted to look at how to find something good in something bad. And that's coming from someone who is not an optimist. That I hate this expression, like there's always something good you can find in the bad. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate this expression. So I'm saying it as a pessimist, so bear with me.
Okay, and while we bear with Michelle, can I just ask you, when you're listening to this, please drop us a like. It really helps. And subscribe. None of it costs anything, but it really makes a big difference to us. So, and also, we'd love to hear from you. So write us messages. We will respond. It's always great to hear from you. And to move on back to the topic, let's look at some of the key emotions that are perceived as being negative, starting off with jealousy and envy. So what's that about? Let me throw out an idea that jealousy is just desire wearing a really unflattering outfit. How do you like that for a quote?
I like that. Okay. You just made it a very stylish villain. Like if you are observing someone else being jealous, my point is looking at yourself when you feel it. So if you feel jealous, and like it's something that people don't want to feel. Like, I can be quite a jealous person, and you just feel it in your chest. The uncomfortable feeling of jealousy when you see your best friend having a different best friend, or if you see your partner talking to, maybe their ex or something like that. We all feel it. And it's so easy to just either judge it within yourself, like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be feeling this. And then you push it down, and it can sort of, come back in the way of maybe being rude to your friend or to your partner, which is not something we want. So I feel it's a great indicator if you really listen to it, and if you just stop and you are like, okay, I feel jealous. That's fine. I have a good reason to feel jealous because this situation just happened. But what does it tell me? Like what it's trying to tell me about myself? And I feel like it's a great indicator of, as you said, your desires. And it's a huge screaming sign of, I care about this, and that's why sort of you put jealousy and envy together, because it doesn't have to be even like with people, but with when you see your friend succeed in something you want to succeed in. It's also super normal to, be happy for them, but also being like, yeah, why did she make it and not me? Like, I want this too. And we shame ourselves for these feelings because, you are like, oh my gosh, you have to be happy for your friend. Like, you are not allowed to feel this way. But if you just listen to it, it's a great indicator of like, oh, I care about this. I care about this person. I want to be this person's first choice, or this is what I want to accomplish and it's not my time yet, and so on and so on. So I think jealousy and envy are one of the strongest indicators of what's actually going on within us.
Yes, but the downside is that it can literally kind of eat away at you inside and just make you feel so bad. And actually, I think
Yeah.
it can have a detrimental effect on your health. So
Yeah,
that's
of
a
course.
reason
That's
for
the point.
so that's a reason for trying to not have those feelings, or at least you can't help not having the feelings. I think that's the thing about emotions, that you can't help emotions. It's very, I talked
No.
about earlier, sort of trying to control mine, but you can't really control emotions. It's
No, and
not a
it's not
thing.
healthy.
No,
Yeah, no.
but at the same time, as I was saying, feeling jealous is not healthy. It can have that bad effect on your health. So you need to be able to think it through, to
Yeah,
rationalize
that's what I'm
it.
saying.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
okay, if I give you like a different example to sort of establish what I'm trying to say with all of this. If, like happiness, like we all have things that makes us happy. And if you are looking for a hobby, for example, or like I don't know, whatever, it's so easy to realize that, like you are like, "Oh my gosh, writing makes me happy. I feel happy and good when I'm writing a book. So that's what I will do." And it's also an indicator. It tells you this makes you feel good. Keep doing this. And that's I feel like it's so obvious and it's like so simple. But it works like that. Even with the bad emotions. Every single emotion is trying to, or every single reaction of yours is trying to tell you something. I feel like we should sort of compare it to this incredible animated movie. What do you call it in English? Inside Out.
Inside Out. Yeah.
I think that was one of the best animated movies or movies
Yeah.
for children
Agreed.
ever.
And
Because it
adults.
just and
I
adults,
loved
yes,
it.
of course. Because for some people, I know you loved it, you love movies like that. But for some people it's hard to imagine how their emotions work. So what happened in that movie was that they made the emotion a person, a character. And suddenly it's much easier. But, another emotion that I want to talk about here is anger. And I feel like that's villainized a lot. Like, you don't want to be angry, you don't want angry people around you, and so on and so on. But if you think about that movie, the anger character wasn't a villain, and everybody liked him and worked with him. And it was fine. And I don't remember like the exact scene, but there was a scene when, he was angry and he was trying to push some button or whatever, react. And the other emotions around him were like, yeah, we know how you feel like that. That's fine. Let's just stop and think about it. And that's genius because that's what we should do, especially with anger. I get angry like very easily. My anger issues could never. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, at the moment, I sometimes also react just like I'm blind, just I'm angry, so I react as an angry person. And, we are not perfect. Emotions will always control us, so that's fine. But what's important is to reflect on it and be like, okay, why did it make me so angry that I had to react at that moment? And, it will show you your triggers and it will show you, I feel like it's a great indicator of injustice in what you believe in because you get angry when someone goes against it. And again, if you keep it in certain lines and if you work with it, I think it's also a great source of energy. If something makes you angry, it's so easy to be like, no, I will do it. I remember, and that's why I think that I've done it with you too, because I always had this with like teachers. When a teacher made me angry, with like, like, oh, you have a very stupid mistake here and like whatever, or you are not good enough for that and so on and so on. And that got me angry. I was always like, no, I will show them. And the next time my results were just so amazing because I was like, I will show them. And I did it because I was angry, literally. And I feel like I still do it to a certain point.
Well, that's a valid use of the power that anger gives you. And anger actually does give you great power. I mean, going back to the film Inside Out, I think, and you talked about people like that character. I think people did like that character because pretty much
Yeah.
everybody could relate to anger, because we've all felt anger at some point or other.
Yeah.
The problem is when anger spills over and gets turns into violence or something, then obviously that's not good. I also think that anger is one of the easier emotions, certainly as you get older, to control. Just count to 10 in your head when you feel angry, and then respond, think about it. And I think that's, it's very possible to do that. And
Yeah.
I'm somebody who does get angry quite easily. It's quite easy to push my buttons, especially if it's
I know.
things that either I think are terribly unfair, or where I think people are doing something perhaps, so obviously wrong.
Mm.
And there's this expression, I first came across it reading reports about tennis matches. I'm big into tennis, as you know. And the expression is controlled aggression. And years ago, there was this very successful American tennis player called Jimmy Connors. And that's who I read it about. That Jimmy Connors played with controlled aggression. He was able to channel his anger and emotions into his tennis playing. But it was controlled. He used the power that it gave him in order to be able to control it. And to be honest, I've learned how to do that, and I can completely control it. So anger is something that can be controlled, and it can be used as a tool, I would argue.
I like that thing about the controlled anger, because as you were speaking, I realized that that's something I've done when I was playing floorball, which was, I was still in elementary school. I was like, I don't know, 13, 14. And it was a mixed team with the girls and boys. And I was, always so little and like super skinny. And the teacher we had, I remember him, him warning me and being like, are you sure you want to join the team? Like, they will break you in half. I was like, yeah, I want to play, and like, it's great sport, and so on and so on. And eventually, as I was in his team, he figured out how to make me play my best. And it was always to make me angry. And only now I realized that that's what he was doing, because he was, him, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. He's very like joking around and like pushing your buttons and so on and so on. And I remember I hated him for it. Like, not really, because I still joined his team. But it was so annoying because he always, before any match, before any training, he was always like, I don't even remember what he was saying. It wasn't anything like insulting, but he always got the reaction out of me. And then I always played so well. Like, one time I was standing like against him, and it was grown-ass man, and I overplayed him just because he kept nagging me to the point when I just saw red, and I won like over him. And so that works. And I think that's a good thing if you do it deliberately.
The thing is there, that what you're talking about is a safe outlet for that emotion. And I think that's really important, especially if you're prone to being angry and getting angry and not being able to control it. Having an outlet is really helpful, and sports can be a great outlet because obviously it's physical, and anger gives you great physical strength. Actually, that's what, going back into the movie world and the world of fantasy, that's what the Incredible Hulk is all about. Showing that when you become angry, it does give you greater strength because your body floods with adrenaline, and it has all sorts of effects on your physical abilities.
I think that that's also a very good sort of metaphor for it, if you think about it, because I'm a huge Marvel fan, so I grew up watching Marvel movies, and Bruce Banner is the nicest person ever. Like, he's this calm scientist, and like, he's so nice and everything, and then he turns into Hulk, and that sort of shows that, first of all, we are all angry, but just the fact that you sometimes feel angry doesn't mean you are an angry person. And that's something that goes with everything, because I feel like we tend to turn feelings and emotions and reactions into personality traits. Like, you feel jealous, and suddenly you are like, oh my gosh, I'm a jealous person. No, you are not a jealous person. You just feel jealous this one time in this exact situation because, you know, you are just a human and that's how everybody would feel. And it goes the same with anger. We all get angry sometimes, but to a certain level, it's normal and doesn't automatically makes us angry people.
Let's talk about regret, because that's a good one. Do we have regrets? Yes, everybody has regrets.
I don't know. Regret is an interesting one because on one hand, I don't know, I'm very torn between having regrets and not having them, because obviously we all have something that we regret, something we've done, something we didn't do that we regret. But I don't know, I'm the type of person who's trying to take a lesson from everything. So, you know, I might regret that I've done this and this because it was terrible, but I'm trying to take something from it. So I think that's like one side. But if I sort of stick to how I judged all of these things before with what is the indicator of, I think it's the indicator of the fact that you've changed. Because when you've done that thing, I believe that you've done it with your best intentions. You know, like if I don't know, if I give like example on my part, I regret taking that one job that I had and not, you know, thinking about it more and not judging the people more before it was too late, and it ended up being one of the worst experiences of my life. And I do regret that because it was terrible. But at that moment, it seemed great. I was really happy about it. I was like, this is a good step for me. And I think that regret is this indicator of the fact that you've changed and you wouldn't do the same mistake again, hopefully.
That's exactly what it is. Now you think about it. I have to say, I always used to be the person that went plowing through my life and saying, I have no regrets about anything and I never will regret anything. Now I have time to look back and reflect and think, actually, you know, I could have been a better person then. And so I realize I do have regrets. And of course, there's nothing you can do about the past, but there's a lot you can do about the present and the future. So you're right. Regret is something that if you experience that, then yeah, the experience of it, the thought of it is negative because you're thinking about something that was bad in your past.
Yeah.
But you can make it better for your future. So it is potentially, you know, like positive.
Another example that just came to my mind, and it might be a bit brutal, a bit like extreme, but I think again it's something that we all, I don't want to say experience because I honestly didn't experience it, but it's something we can relate to. And so many people, when someone around them passes away, people often have regrets of not saying something to them. Like, I wish that we didn't end up on such a bad note. I wish I told them how much I love them, and so on and so on. And that's terrible. I can't even imagine how that feels. But what it can give you is maybe telling people you love them, because now you realize the risk of it. So the next time you won't do it. You won't do it. And you will make peace with people. You will tell them you care about them. And, you know, you can fix that situation in a way. So I don't think regret is a bad thing. Again, if you can work with it.
Okay, so we talked about four of the main emotions there. There are obviously other emotions that we haven't touched on. Grief, for example, is a huge topic. So I think there's more here that we will talk about another day. But meanwhile,
I wanted to talk about this very short test again, because lately we are huge fans of that. But funnily enough, I feel like if you want to see how much in touch with emotions you are, I think it's a great test. It's not about you personally, because one thing is being in touch with your feelings and emotions, but the other thing is seeing these in others. And I think this test is perfect for that, because it's a test to see your ability to read the emotions of others from their eyes, which connects to social intelligence. So if you are interested in how well you can read people, we will put the link to this test into the episode description. It's not long, it's 36 pictures, and you see just people's eyes and you have to decide what they are feeling at the moment. I think it's so interesting. Just to say where it comes from, I found a test in the book Read People Like a Book by Patrick King, because it was mentioned there. And the test itself was developed by Professor Simon Baron Cohen at the University of Cambridge. So again, it's not just some fun and games quiz. It has some psychological background, and it's interesting. You've done it. You've done quite well. Oh my gosh, I was so surprised by that.
So yeah, I can say that it's fun to do, but it is testing. And as Michelle said, you just see these pictures of eyes expressing an emotion, not the rest of the face, just the eyes. And then you're given a choice of what do you think that they're expressing. So it's fascinating. And it's just simply there are right and wrong answers. And it'll give you an idea of your ability to read how somebody's thinking. Am I allowed to say what my score was?
No, if you are proud of it, of course.
Well, there were 36 questions, 36 pictures, and I got 32 right, apparently. So apparently that was very good.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I don't remember my results because it's been some time since I've done it, but I had 30 something as well. And, I'm usually very proud of the fact that I can read people. So I was like, oh, I can still do better. Let me try in a couple of months maybe and see how I do. But, I think that I was, as I was saying, I was really surprised by your results. And now I will have to really be careful with my eyes because my eyes are very expressive. Like my face in general. I don't have to tell you what I'm feeling or thinking, but you will be able to see it on my face. So now I'll be just looking at you like this. Because I don't want you to read me that well because that's scary.
So anyway, as Michelle said, we'll place the link. It's there in the description of this podcast. And so go and click on it and have a bit of fun and see what your social abilities are in reading people's eyes. And while you're there, don't forget, leave us a like for our podcast and subscribe because it really helps us.
So if there is one thing you should take from this episode, it's that all emotions deserve understanding and we should listen to them instead of judging them, even within ourselves.